Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. Well, not really if you've seen this show, but you get it. Welcome back to StillerBros at the Movies, where today we are covering what might be one of the most anticipated movies of the summer, the final goodbye for one of cinema's most wonderful classic heroes, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
So, the Indiana Jones movies are iconic, which makes sense because they're fucking great for the most part.
Spielberg at his most fun, Lucas at the height of his non-Star Wars related powers. Just generally a revival of a franchise, the revival of an entire aesthetic that these two grew up on and loved as kids, with that special Spielberg World's Greatest Director punch.
Yes. Raiders obviously is a classic. It is one of the greatest movies ever made, period.
The Last Crusade is our absolute favorite of the franchise, for multiple reasons.
Temple of Doom is okay. We didn't like it a lot the first time we saw it. We watched it again recently because we watched all of them again recently, and we thought it was, and we had a better opinion of it, partially because Ke Huy Quan has become Ke Huy Quan.
But lukewarm opinion, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull isn't the worst Indiana Jones movie. Temple of Doom is.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that, I think it's mainly the fact that Temple of Doom has a major, it's not like a lot of other people where we're like, oh, it's racist, it's bad. It's like, no, I don't think it's any better or worse in certain regards as the other Indiana Jones movies. I think the problem is a lack of focus.
It is.
And also the worst love interest in the entire Indiana Jones franchise, but we'll go deeper into that if we feel like it.
Yeah. It's
just that the Temple of Doom feels more episodic than the other movies. It doesn't feel like there's a clear start and end to it. We start in a nightclub in China, and then somehow we're in a completely different country, in a completely different movie, with the same characters, including one who was just haphazardly dragged along and spends the entire movie complaining and doing nothing worthwhile for the plot.
Yeah. But ultimately, that's our take. The third is the best. The second is not probably the weakest. But ultimately, the Indiana Jones franchise is considered great for a reason.
It's a lot of fun, and so it's been one of those things where Lucas and Spielberg, when they originally signed the contract to make the Indiana Jones movies with Paramount, they had signed on for a 5-movie deal, even though in the press they constantly said, we always intended it as a trilogy, which makes sense when you look at the fact that the third movie literally ends with Indy and his cohorts riding off into the sunset.
And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out 15 years ago, and it felt like that was also putting the character to bed. But then again, the Shia LaBeouf of it all, and the fact that people were very unhappy with it overall.
Mixed at best is the way that most people could probably put it.
Yes. Also, if you want to be extra pissed off that Shia LaBeouf was about Shia LaBeouf in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he had a screen-worn hat from that movie, and he gave it to a Nazi.
Yeah. That's not good.
He told that story on Hot Ones, on his episode of Hot Ones, if you're interested.
And if you can stand to listen to his stupid voice.
Yeah.
In anything that wasn't written by Louis Satcher.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of open to a new movie. In fact, even after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, Harrison Ford was fielding questions from reporters left and right to essentially be like, is Indy 5 going to happen? Is Indy 5 ever going to happen? Is Indy 5 ever going to happen? Are they going to replace you with Shia LaBeouf? To which his response was the wonderful, they'll let him get his own hat. It's my hat. He can get his own.
Yeah. And for 15 years, that's basically what Harrison Ford has been hearing, especially when 10 years ago, Disney bought Lucasfilm.
This might be the last time we mentioned Disney buying Lucasfilm in an episode, because Disney bought Lucasfilm, and in that acquisition, among the many things they got, was Indiana Jones. And so they've been spending a lot of time in the background while they were making Star Wars stuff, trying to figure out how they can make a new Indiana Jones movie when Paramount has the keys to the kingdom, so to speak.
Until a couple of years ago, when they were able to finally finish up negotiations to get Paramount to hand over the distribution rights for further Indiana Jones movies, while they hold the rights for the previous 4.
Though, of course, there's also the fact that through all these negotiations, Spielberg, for the longest time, pretty much ever since the Lucasfilm acquisition, pretty much ever since he directed his first Disney movie with the BFG, has been saying, no matter what happens, my next movie is going to be Indiana Jones. 4 next movies later, Spielberg has dropped out of Indiana Jones. Just not... Probably a sense of creative differences, probably a sense of he just felt like he was never going to get around to it when he had all these other passion projects like West Side Story and The Fabelmans to get to.
It was also probably the fact that this was February of 2020, and he was working on the Fabelmans in earnest, and Disney was trying to fast track this. So, but yeah, he dropped out in about February of 2020. March of 2020, the pandemic hit, but with the pandemic came a new director deciding that he was able to sign on with that.
James Mangold, a manly man who directs manly movies like Ford v Ferrari, Logan, The Wolverine, 3:10 to Yuma, and Girl Interrupted and Kate and Leopold for some reason. I don't know.
He has a very eclectic taste in film, obviously, with the movies he's made. He obviously has more stuff in the works with Swamp Thing for DC, which he is writing, as well as a upcoming Star Wars movie about the very first Jedi.
Though, of course, his entire filmography says one thing. If there's one thing James Mangold knows how to do, it's a genre riff.
Yes.
And what is Indiana Jones if not the ultimate genre riff from the ultimate nerdy fanboys? And so, James Mangold signed on. He's got the Butterworth brothers as his... That's right?
Yes.
Okay.
It feels weird to think that, but it's right. They are the Butterworth. Their last name is Butterworth. They are the Butterworth brothers.
But he's got the Butterworth brothers co-writing the screenplay with him. John Williams is back for the 5th time, composing the score in what was originally set to be his final score, but he changed his mind on retiring. And, of course, Harrison Ford comes back for what is purported to be one last ride.
We also have joining the cast this time around, the likes of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Mads Mikkelsen playing the Indy's companion and the villain of the piece, respectively.
And Antonio Banderas playing... He says he's not an antagonist or any major player, but just kind of a fun cameo appearance. Not sure, because it feels like if that was the case, they probably wouldn't have announced him as far in advance as they did. And the returns of such franchise favorites as Karen Allen and John Rhys-Davies as Sala.
And John Rhys-Davies, both of whom we are very excited to see again.
But along the way, we've got this whole rumor that they had started off that they were probably thinking of recasting Indy or de-aging him, which Spielberg at the first was saying, no, we're not going to de-age him. Harrison's young enough, still powerful enough, he's still good enough at doing stunts that we don't need to replace him with a CGI double. A few months later, they announced that Spielberg had actually conceived of a CGI scene involving a de-aged Harrison Ford, and this trailer and the trailers for this movie actually revealed that over the course of that this entire movie takes place in 1944 and 1969. Nice.
We will be seeing a de-aged Harrison Ford, obviously, but the technology is there where it will probably not be too noticeable unless it is. I'm really not wanting to eat my words like we do looking back on the Justice League. On the whole Justice League mustache thing.
For right now, it looks like the de-aged Harrison Ford mostly is done in poorer lighting, is kind of the way that they did it in Jurassic Park to kind of cover up any of the weaknesses in the CGI.
And Rise of Skywalker with the CG Luke before they had the deepfake guy from YouTube come in to help them on Mandalorian Season 3.
But for right now, we've got a vague glimpse of CGI Harrison Ford, or vague ideas of what we've got. but we've got all the fan service of John Rhys-Davies and he's showing up. We've got Harrison Ford riding horseback and fighting Nazis. Contrary to one particular reporter's pull quote on Rotten Tomatoes,
which from what we can tell, you can pick your pull quote. Well, why would you pick that?
You do not need an excuse in a movie to punch a Nazi.
Yes, especially since that is what one of the best things about these movies is punching Nazis. Ben Burtt created the ultimate sound of Indiana Jones' fist colliding with a Nazi's jaw.
But all that's missing, in my opinion, is any kind of confirmation that there will be a Ke Huy Quan post-credit scene in which we announce a short round coming to Disney Plus 2025.
Which would be the greatest fucking news ever, because Ke Huy Quan is awesome, and he deserves all of the success that he has gained over the last 2 years.
It's just so hard for one man to radiate so much pure charm, and yet he does it.
And it makes you kind of pissed off that we lost 30 years of this man being in movies.
But apart from that, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny looks like another fun Indiana Jones movie. Who'd have thought? Whether or not it's going to be on the level of Raiders of the Lost Ark is anyone's guess, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is a masterpiece.
It is, again, it's probably one of the greatest movies ever made.
Even we accept it, knowing full well that Last Crusade is our favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you make better movies, but this is the best one. But this is the favorite.
But with all that said, I'm still looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Even with the fact that Spielberg's not involved in anything other than an executive producer capacity. But then again, Spielberg has seen this.
Yeah. And apparently he said to James Mangold after seeing this, I thought I was the only one who could make one of these.
Of course, Tom Cruise also saw it, is another thing to bring up, because apparently Tom Cruise is just someone that studios keep handing movie tickets to in an attempt to be like, hey, get people in our movies. Because he saw The Flash and said he liked it, he saw this and he said he liked it, and he saw Barbie and Oppenheimer and said that he liked both of them, even as a double feature.
I mean, Tom Cruise...
So, I'm not saying we're in the weirdest timeline, because we all know we are in the weirdest timeline. But it's kind of weird that movie studios have suddenly been like, hey, what does Tom Cruise think of this movie?
Like, are we suddenly going to be seeing a quote on a poster? It's awesome, Tom Cruise for Wish, this November when we see Wish and there's a poster outside the theater. It's awesome, Tom Cruise. Dash Tom Cruise.
It's just, is Tom Cruise going to just start making movie reviews on YouTube? How are we going to compete with that?
Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough for now.
So, we'll see you guys after the jump. As far as Indiana Jones movies go, that was really fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Not the best Indiana Jones movie. That's... Last Crusade still stands as our favorite, and
don't know where I'd rank this one.
I think I would put it just above Crystal Skull. So our new definitive order for the time being, until we have watched and probably figured out and probably kind of reorganized everything, is 3, 1, 5, 4, 2. Yeah, but ultimately that was a lot of fun. Maybe too long, kind of too long.
Yeah, there is
a lot of movie in this movie. It is the longest Indiana Jones movie, but that is probably my biggest gripe with it. It is really long. Kind of a little. The length bogs it down quite a bit.
There's this little fake out near the end where you kind of feel like something's going to happen in the ending, and then they just kind of snap you back to reality.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about that.
In the moment,
I feel a little better than if they had gone through with what it felt like they were doing.
Yeah, but ultimately, this is a really good send-off to one of the most iconic characters in cinema history.
The American James Bond version of James Bond, which is what apparently Lucas and Spielberg were going for when they conceived of the character.
And for all you Lucas purists out there who want Kathleen Kennedy's blood, George Lucas is an executive producer on this.
George Lucas put his name on it. George Lucas was probably in the room where they were planning a good chunk of this movie.
George Lucas was probably at least involved to some degree in the process of making this one. So, if you don't like it, fuck you.
Anyway, let's talk a bit more into certain things. We'll start with the CGI Harrison Ford because it's one of the first things you see in the movie, so we'll just kind of get that out of the way. It's a mixed bag.
Like with most CGI de-aging characters in Lucasfilm productions, it works part of the time.
Like, sometimes there will be a case where the lip sync's a little off. Sometimes it'll be a thing where it feels a little off, where it feels like his face is a little bit misaligned with his head, or his head is a little too big. The technology is mostly there to recreate, to de-age Harrison Ford. They obviously had a lot of reference footage from around the time they needed to pull from, but it's not perfect, and I don't know when it will be perfect. Deepfake technology is getting scarily close every single day.
We kind of, in the back of our minds, hope that it will never be perfect just because of that.
But you know what? Harrison Ford really wants to play this character has really wanted to play this character for as long as he possibly can. I'm not saying they needed to call in Alden Ehrenreich and be like, "Hey, we've got you contracted for a bunch of movies we're not going to make. Come on in."
Part of it for me was that his voice was a little, because it's still Harrison Ford's voice, so it's a little. So Harrison Ford now's voice coming out of young Harrison Ford's mouth kind of gave me some uncanny valley.
It didn't pull me out. That's the important thing.
No, it was we were still kind of sucked into the movie.
But I was very aware that that's not young Harrison Ford, or with footage he shot like 30 years ago. That's Harrison Ford now with a CGI head on it. That's a CGI body double and Harrison Ford kind of mixed together to make one performance. I think one of the big problems was the lack of stubble. They kind of made him the cleanest shaven I've ever seen Indiana Jones in something.
Yeah, but ultimately, aside from that, Harrison Ford this is probably one of the best performances Harrison Ford has ever given as Indy.
Well, it's mostly because Harrison Ford loves two things in this world: playing this character and Ke Huy Quan. There is nothing, end of list. Yes, I'm aware he has a wife and kids.
Seeing those two men reunite every time is just a beautiful thing that will never not make me as happy as I possibly can be. But we digress.
Harrison Ford is clearly well aware that Indiana Jones is one of those characters that will be his legacy, and he loves this character.
And the fact that he has very meaty emotional stuff to work with this time around really helps with his performance.
I think he's gonna be just fine if people keep asking him for the rest of his career if he's ever gonna do Indiana Jones 6, because he just continues to love this character, whereas with Han Solo, he was very clearly dreading the inevitable question of, so they're making another Star Wars movie, you gonna be in it?
Yeah, but that's the fun of it. And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge comes in and she's just
essentially playing a slightly more anti-hero-ish version of Indy.
She's
from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And she just brings this energetic, this magnetic, charismatic energy to the role that she brings into all of her roles, obviously.
And it's just kind of fun to see her jumping about, just being all tally-ho, good chaps, every time it seems like the Nazis are about to fight her.
Plus, she was probably happy to be in a Lucasfilm production where she didn't have to wear blue tights and robot parts on her, strapped to her body.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a big plus to when she was cast. And Mads Mikkelsen, I'm sure he was this was just a role that he was sure he was going to play at some point, where he's like, all right, Eastern European actor, might as well put on the Nazi uniform at some point in my career. And what better place to put it on than when you're playing a comically over-the-top villain in a Indiana Jones production.
Yes.
And obviously he's good. He's good at it. As is Boyd Holbrook, basically playing his character from Logan again, only without the robot arm.
Yes.
Which, you know what? That's fine. Soldiers for Hire or Boyd Holbrook's bread and butter. I'm sure he appreciates the work.
And James Mangold clearly appreciates working with James Mangold. And ultimately, this is a really good Indiana Jones story. We get the mysticism, we get the laughs, we get the action.
It's just and yeah, James Mangold, despite the fact that he's that with the reaction to Hugh Jackman coming back for Deadpool 3, is acting like he is not a big fan of franchise movies. Does know how to push the little nostalgia button to basically be like, look, it's Sala. Look, it's this. Look, they're referencing that. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is a big nostalgic Easter egg heavy movie, but they do all but at one point they do all but basically have Indy say, oh yeah, Short Round was a lot like that.
Yeah. Fuck Matt Williams' Short Round is Indy's son. But
even though one of the scenes that really got my heartstrings up pumping was the scene where they reveal what happened to Matt Williams.
And it kind of makes you care about Matt Williams.
I think we benefited from the fact that we rewatched the entire quadrilogy up until this point in preparation for this, because we kind of remembered, okay, this happened, this, okay, we remember this now. It's fresh in our minds. Right. So we just rewatched Crystal Skull 2 days ago. All
the stuff with Mutt and everything is still fresh in our minds. Everything that happened in the last movie is fresh. It's just it felt like a send off that's for one thing, kind of the audience probably, there's a lot of people that wanted it to happen, but it also felt like a send-off that felt like it would be perfect to add something to Indy's character.
It felt, I don't think it was as complete a character arc as The Last Crusade gave us, but it was a fitting end to Indy's character. If they never make another Indiana Jones movie, this would be satisfying. If they make another Indiana Jones movie, I don't know if it's gonna work again, but you know what? No one thought this was gonna work. A lot of people were questioning if this was gonna work again. So have at it.
I mean, Harrison Ford is 80 this year, and it's already kind of impressive that at 80 years old, Harrison Ford still was able to play Indy.
He's still able to do as many stunts as he possibly can with him.
He's still very willing and able to at least try to do as much of his own stunt work as he can.
And you know what? Gotta commend the guy. You're 80 years old. You're taking care of yourself enough to do all this stunts as Indiana Jones. You're still willing and happy to play Indiana Jones. Just let the guy. I mean, if they replaced him with Chris Pratt tomorrow, it would be heartbreaking. Because
it would also be kind of sacrilege.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, he's still alive. He's still doing this. He just did this. Why are you greenlighting this movie already? But I think that Harrison Ford was just kind of meant to play this role to this logical conclusion.
And his idea, and the thing that he's always said is, in his later years, is he's Indy. Once he's gone, Indy's gone. So it's at least good that we got a proper goodbye to this character. Even though he's not going anywhere, he's got plenty of plans to keep him occupied for the next couple of years. And
obviously, the Indiana Jones franchise isn't necessarily going to go anywhere, because Disney is going to continue to keep this going. We don't know how, but apparently there's no plans to let this franchise just kind of sit and hit idle for the rest of eternity, because.
Yeah, but as right now they are focusing more. Lucasfilm is focusing on Star Wars projects right now. So
for right now, Indy's put to bed, and that's fine. because at least this time we get to kind of enjoy a fun movie where that doesn't end with CGI aliens that make you think, they probably could have done this practically somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is another fun ride. Probably not the best indie movie, but it's definitely better than the weaker entries in the franchise.
Yeah. It's definitely something worth checking out. And obviously Lucasfilm needs as many wins as it can get. Not because it's been putting out any bad material. It's probably been putting out some of the best material they've had since the Disney acquisition in the last couple of years.
It's just that the last couple Star Wars movies kind of faltered theatrically.
With the last couple Star Wars, the last Star Wars movie and the couple Star Wars movies in theaters didn't do as great as they should have.
They didn't rule the world, but they didn't fail. They just kind of did good.
Like Rise of Skywalker hit $1 billion, but it didn't do as good as the other two. But then this last couple of years they've had The Mandalorian and Andor and Willow and the Willow Show, even though it's not on Disney Plus anymore.
And they're gonna have Ahsoka in a couple months. And so Lucasfilm is fine as a division of the Disney as a new arm of the Disney Corporation. I don't know.
But it would be nice if we got more entries into the indies world. And like we said at the beginning, we would love to see a short round show with Ke Huy Quan. We would love to see Phoebe Waller-Bridge doing something in the coming up.
It's just nice to see Harrison Ford hang it up, enjoy your retirement from Indy. We look forward to seeing if you actually will become the Red Hulk, because you're having quite the fun time trolling the press by pretending that you're not gonna be in a mocap suit before the end of your time in the MCU.
Yeah.
So, I think that's it. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a fun ride. Not the best indie movie, but definitely not the worst. And so, we bid you adieu. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends, leave it in the comments what you thought of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and don't forget to tune in next time when we light the fuse. Yeah, I know we already did that one. It's been 150 episodes, guys. Give us a break.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.